Hey, what's going on everyone? Mark Price here at devslopes.com, and we are going to talk more about Bootstrap right now. Again, if you know Bootstrap in and out, feel free to skip this video. However, I think it's going to be a great video. I'm going to talk about the Bootstrap grid system and how it works, and it can be complex, so I'm going to break it down in a simple way as possible, and I have taught this many times to many students, and so let's go ahead and get started. What I've pulled up here is the code I did from the last video, and so if you don't have that available to you, it's just basic HTML with a header and a body. I've included the CDN links for Bootstrap, the Bootstrap min.css, and the Bootstrap theme, as well as Bootstrap JavaScript file here and jQuery, which is actually on my local file system, as you can see right there. If you don't have these, just look at the last video and you'll see how to do it. I'm going to take out the input and the button, and let's pull open the screen here, and if I refresh it, it should be empty, which it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Bootstrap grid system, okay? And if you want more information about the Bootstrap grid system, go to getbootstrap.com, go to CSS, and they have a whole section dedicated to how the grid system works, as you can see right here, okay? And it's going to explain how you use it, all right? So while we have this open, let me just give you a brief overview before we dive right in. So you're like, stop scrolling, you're giving me a seizure here. Okay, so grid options. This is what I wanted to show you. XS means extra small. Just remember that for now. SM means small. MD means medium. And LG means large. Okay, and it has widths here that when these classes are applied, so when you're making your screen smaller, or if you're on an iPhone or an Android or a tablet, it will automatically apply the class appropriate for that screen size. Okay, so what you want to do when you're implementing the Bootstrap grid system is set sizes for things on the screen. For instance, if you have something on the screen that you want all the way to fill all the, or if you have two things on the screen that you want to fill half and half on the screen, okay, when it's a large screen, but on a small screen you want it to be one, you can adjust the columns accordingly. You can change the way things look based on the screen size, and this is what responsive design is all about when it comes to CSS. It's making something look good on every single screen size, and that doesn't mean just shrinking it down. It means moving things around, and this is the system that you're going to use to do that. But that is enough talk for now. Let's go ahead and actually build something useful. And body, what we're going to do is we're just going to create some nice colors, okay, on our screen to demonstrate how Bootstrap works. So first things first, div class equals container. So what a container does with Bootstrap is it gives you a working space inside your document. I believe it's 1,000 pixels wide or so. You can look it up if that number is not quite right, but it is about 1,000 pixels wide, and it contains all of your stuff, or it should. You don't have to use it, but it makes nice formatting on pages. So let's go ahead and put a style here so we can see it. Style equals, and we're just going to say background, and we're going to say pink. Okay, forgive me, I know, but let's go ahead and go to our web page here and refresh it. Oh, and we want to, let's go ahead and set a height here just to show that it's working. So say height, and let's just say 500 pixels. Okay, so as you can see, there's pink. It's perfectly centered here. Notice how it's perfectly centered, which is awesome. We can also right click and go to inspect, you know, and you can look at the different elements that are here, which is really cool. So you can see like the CSS that's going on under the hood. And I recommend, as you're learning Bootstrap, by the way, I was wrong. It looks like the container is about 1,200 pixels by default, and it's on the large desktop here. So I recommend looking at the inspect element as you're learning Bootstrap so you can see what's going on behind the scenes. So there we go. We've got a pink background here. That's our main container. So now you know that everything's going to be placed in this middle container, and I'm going to get rid of it now so that you can see what's really going to happen here. And what we're going to do is create a grid system. So let's say that I want one object to completely take up the full span of the screen, or of the container, at least in this case here. So we're going to say div, all right, class equals, we're going to say call dash sm for small, and we're going to say -12. Why 12? Well, in the Bootstrap grid system, in fact, let's just put this over here. In the Bootstrap grid system, every time you create a row, okay, it has 12 columns in it. And you're like, well, what's a row? Well, a row is kind of an arbitrary object that you put in a div class that will contain X amount of columns, or up to 12 columns. And so every column that you create, not every column you create, but every section that you want on your page should have a row. Okay? So let's also create a row. And columns should always be inside of rows. Okay? So think of it this way. Just like an Excel spreadsheet, when you have different rows, each row goes down, you got rows and columns, and a row can have multiple columns. Every time you want elements to be positioned below something else on the next row down, you put it in a row. Okay? Does that make sense? So when you're designing applications, it goes row, columns, row, columns, row, columns. A row has up to 12 columns. Okay? So that is very important to understand about the Bootstrap grid system. You can't just put any column size here. You have to put up to 12, and it cannot be more than 12 or things will start to break. So what we're saying here is, hey, we want something that spans the entire width of the screen because it's 12, or at least the entire width of the container, because the container goes to about 1200 pixels. Okay? So to see it working in action, style equals, we're going to say color pink, and I got to set a fixed height just so it shows up. We're going to say height 200 pixels. And if I go to my web page here and refresh it, it is not working. Let's go ahead and see why. Oh, it is working. It's just, I set the color, which is for the font. We need the background color. There we go. That should do the trick. There we go. So there's our pink, right? It's covering the entire width, which is really cool. So awesome. Now, why did I choose SM? Well, so here's something to understand. Let's say that you don't want to go do all this crazy stuff for all the different screen sizes, but you do want to support all of them as best you can. Well, if you just do small, okay, it kind of covers most of your bases, meaning it'll scale upwards. But that's not always the case with large. If you had set LG, it might not look that great on a mobile device. So I recommend that you always start from the lowest upwards. If you're not going to implement all the different sizes, go ahead and scale it from the lowest upward. But what we're saying here more or less is on all the screen sizes, on small, medium, large, whatever, let's just take up the whole entire screen. Okay, so if I open up this web page and I drag things around, okay, notice how it's still filling up the whole thing, right? Okay, really cool. Now, this is interesting. So let's say on the small screen, we actually want it to take up half, let's say 6, but we also on the large screen we want it to take up the full screen. So we just add another class here. So call-lg- let's say 12. So what we're saying here is on a large screen, let's make it cover the entire screen, but on a small screen, let's only make it cover half. Okay? Let's refresh the page. Oh, interesting. So we're now we're going onto the small screen here, right? And it's only covering half. Okay. Well, how come when I got down even lower, it went back full screen again? Well, it's because on the extra, we're not supporting extra small. So that's interesting. So what if we said call-x extra small? Okay. And we said 3. So on extra small screens, let's go ahead and just cover 1/3 of the space, or actually that's 1/4 of the space. Okay. So here we are going down. Okay. So we're now at about 6. We're covering half, right? So we're on a smaller screen now. Okay, so let's go even smaller. Look at that. We got to the extra small screen, and now it's at 3. So I hope you can see how things are starting to work out now. Okay, as you scale things down, those Bootstrap size, those grid size classes are telling how wide it should be and how it should look, which is very important. And maybe you're wondering, well, when would I know how to do what? Well, that's up to you. It's a design decision. How do you want it to look on the different screen sizes? So that's really cool. So it looks kind of ugly though. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave it at size 12 on all screens, which is fine. And I'll just set it to SM. Okay, so that's cool. We've got a column there. Now, if it's covering the whole screen, we don't want to add any more columns to this row because we know there's not a whole lot more we can do in the row because it's taking up the whole screen. So, this would be a good chance to make another row like so. Okay. maybe in this one, we'll do something different. Let's say in this one, we want 3 objects to cover the entire screen, okay? So div class equals call-sm. Well, we have 12 columns we can work with, right? So what do we need? It needs to be a size of 4 because we want 3 of them. So call-sm-4. Okay, style equals, we're gonna say, I'm just gonna say background this time because it does the same thing as background color and it's shorter. We're gonna say background is gonna be red, and we're gonna say height is gonna be 200 pixels. Okay, that looks good to me. Let's end that div here, and I'm gonna copy and paste this 2 more times, like so. So we've got 4, 8, and 12, okay? Covering a full width of 12, but with 3 different items this time. We're gonna say red, blue, and yellow. And I'm gonna refresh the page. Okay, there you have it. You are now having a seizure, which I hold no responsibility over because I didn't create these colors. This is HTML, CSS fault, all right? So we've got 3 objects here, or 3 divs, and they are equally separating the screen. If I scroll in like so, look at that. They automatically stack for you when you get to smaller screens. So that's another cool thing about Bootstrap is things will stack for you if they do not fit on the screen, which is pretty awesome. But let's say that no matter what, you wanted those 3 objects to be on the screen at that same time, okay, no matter what. Well, let's give that a shot. I'm gonna make this big again. I'm gonna actually copy this whole thing right here and create a new row, okay? And let's just change the colors again. Let's call this one Burleywood. That's a CSS color. And let's go ahead and say black, and let's say orange. Let's make sure the colors are showing up differently. Okay. Not the prettiest thing, okay, but whatever. So let's say no matter what the screen size is, I want 3 items to show on the screen. Well, how would you do that? We kind of have to play around with some things, right? So what we're saying here is on a small screen, let's make it 4, 4, and 4, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So what I'm actually thinking is maybe on large screens, okay, it's 4, 4, and 4. But maybe on, let's say, a smaller screen and medium screen. Well, let's just try small screen first. Let's say call-sm, and let's say on a small screen, I only want it to take up 1 space, okay, 1 column on a small screen, all right? And let's do the same thing here. Call-sm-1 and call-sm-1. Okay, so what we're saying is on a big screen, let's have each column, let's have it take up 4 columns, okay? Each one take up 4 columns, but on a small screen, let's only have it take up 1 column. Let's see what happens. So we're on the large screen, right? Let's see what happens as I scale in. Okay, so look at that. Notice how it went down on a small screen, like so, okay? That's interesting. When I scroll down here, it got big again. What is going on? Well, we didn't support extra small screens, so we should do that now too. So the more customization you need to have, the more things you have to support, okay? You can't just leave it so generic. So call-xm, or extra xs, excuse me, it's gonna be 1, and we can actually just copy and paste this here. So on the extra small screens, let's do the same thing, 1, 1, and 1. Now, that was interesting. I was actually kind of on a medium screen when it got this small. So let's put support in for medium as well too, call-md. And on a medium screen, let's have it take up 3, 3, and 3 instead, okay? So let's put that here and here. All right, are you confused? Are you lost yet? So this is what we're doing. On large screens, each div is gonna take up 4 columns. On medium screens, each div is gonna take up 3 columns. On small screens, it's gonna be 1, and extra small screens, it's gonna be 1. Let's see how it turns out. We've added support for multiple screen sizes here. Let's start off big and refresh it. So we're in large, scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. That's medium, okay? We just added support for medium. I'm not personally impressed with how it's turning out, but then there's small, okay? And there's extra small. Notice how it's there, and it's fine. So that's how you can do different things on different screen sizes, okay? That would be a lot of CSS you'd have to write if you were doing it all manually, so it's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and go on to another row, and let's talk about offsets. You'll use these occasionally. So what we're gonna do is create a new row. In fact, I'm just going to kind of copy this whole thing right here, so I don't have to duplicate a bunch of code. And I'm going to take off these two and change this to call-sm, and let's say that we only want it 3. And what color should we do? Let's say we got orange, we got yellow. Oh, red's fine. We'll just leave it there. So let's go ahead and leave it as is. We're saying, hey, we've got a row, and then we've got a column of size 3, just one. Let's refresh the page here. And there it is at the bottom. Now let's say that we actually wanted this red brick right here, this red div, to be in the middle. Okay, well, one thing we could do is we could set some empty spacers. You could say div class equals, let's say we want it in the middle, right? And there's 12, so 12 minus 3, 12,987, that gives us, it doesn't really work well with uneven numbers, so let's say it was 4. So 12 minus 4 is 6, right? And so what we could do is we could have a spacer here, call-sm-3, because if you had 3 padding on the left and 3 on the right, it would technically be, what do you call it? Perfectly 12. So let's give that a shot here. And if I refresh the page, it moves it over. Oh, that's incorrect. Sorry. Stupid. 4. You guys are like, where'd this guy go to school for math? So 4, if you did 4 beforehand, there it is right in the middle, right? As you would expect it to be. Now, that's not necessarily the best way you can do it. What I like to use is offsets. So what you can do is you can say call-sm-4, and then you can set an offset. And in our case, we want to do call-sm-offset what? Well, this is how you set an offset. So you take the total amount of rows and you subtract the current column size. So 12 minus 4 is what? 12,987.6. Okay, so you've got 6 left over. And so what you do is you take that leftover amount and you divide it by 2. Okay, so 12 minus 4 is 6. There's the 4, right? So your column size is 4. 12 minus 4 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, divide it in half. So our offset is 3. And again, it only really works with even numbers. Okay, so kind of keep your grids on an even system here. So if we refresh our page, okay, why is it SM 12, 11, 10, 9? Oh, guys, just shoot me now. Okay, 12. All right, so this is what we need to do. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. God, what is up with me? So it's 8, and I was a game programmer. Frick. So 8 is the answer is what's left over, not 6. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the offset is 4. Same principle though, right? All right, there it is, right in the center. So that's how you can center stuff, okay? So you take 12, subtract it from the column that you want to offset it by, and then you divide that by 2. And that's just how you center something. You can use offsets to even just create regular old offsets on anything. So, I could say an offset of 1, and if I refresh my page, it is offset by 1, as you can see right here. So offsets can be used to move things around or to center things like I just showed you. So that's another thing you have available to you on the grid system here. So really cool stuff. It's not that complex once you think about it. Here are the rules though, okay? Row, columns, row, columns, row, columns, okay? Another thing I want to show you is columns within columns. Ooh, what do you mean? So you can actually have endless amounts of rows. So it goes row, column, right? So for instance, let's say we take this top one right here again, and I copy and paste it down here. And if I refresh the page, we've got a new set of blocks here, right? Red, blue, and yellow. Oh, I think I'm going to have a seizure. Wow. Okay, so we've got those there. Now let's say in this, this blue box, let's say we want to put actual objects inside of that as well too and divide that up even further. Well, we can do that. So if you see this blue one right here, we can expand the div here. What we do is we set another row. So div class equals row. We want to set a row inside of this. And again, once you create a row, it creates 12 columns, but it only creates 12 columns within the parent row. Okay, so this row right here is basically saying, hey, we've got 4, 4, and 4, but then inside of this column right here, we're adding a row. And excuse me, what I said is when you create a sub row, it creates 12 columns within the parent column here. So this column of 4 is now going to be divided into 12, okay? It's no different than anything we've done. It's just going to be happening inside that one single column. So what I can do now is, now that I'm at 12 again, let's say I want 3 divs across it, okay? I can actually take this. This is really cool. I can take this, copy it, put it inside of this div here, okay? And this, here's 1, 2, and 3, red, blue, and yellow. Let's just change some different colors. Let's say pink, we'll say purple, and we'll say burlywood, okay? We're gonna take this row inside of this column of 4. Again, so this blue one right here, we're gonna divide it into 3, okay? And for the height, let's just go ahead, and this time we're gonna say 100, 100, and 100, so you can still see the red underneath it on the bottom half. And so what we've done here is inside this row, we've divided it into a third because there's 12, so that we need 4, 4, and 4. Let's take a look at it and see what happens. Interesting. So really cool, right? Bootstrap can have columns within columns within columns. It just needs to be row, column, row, column. Okay, so that's real cool. We've got 3 there, and we've got this down here. So really, that's Bootstrap grid system. I mean, it's going to take a lot of practice to get the hang of, to figure it out. Sometimes you have to visualize the grid in your head. But you can watch this video. You can refresh on what we've done here. You can look at the code. Cool stuff. One more thing I want to show you. And that's how you can better test your grid system. So if you open up the Google Developer Tools, I like going Command-Alt-J. And what I like to do is click this little window right here, Toggle Device Mode. And in the Mac, it says Command-Up-M, or excuse me, Command-Shift-M is the key term here. If you click it, it actually tells you how wide the device is. Here's the pixels. And also you can change your device mode here. So we can say, you know what? I want to see what it looks like on an iPhone 6. It looks pretty dang ugly on an iPhone 6. So what you can actually do is you could drag this out and start watching the pixels change and how it actually changes on the different screen devices. This is fantastic for testing. If you're wanting to build to iPad or iPhone, use this tool. I use it hand in hand with the Bootstrap grid system. And they have presets here like Apple iPad. Of course, you can do a laptop with a medium definition screen. So go through the different settings to test out how it's going to look on your device. Again, that's here in the Google Developer Tools. And I just clicked the device console mode over here. I can turn it off, turn it back on just as easily. And that's it. That's the Bootstrap grid system. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on the chat room or anywhere else. That's it. Mark Price here with DevSlopes.com. Let's go ahead and move forward. And remember, to get your free live help, go to devslopes.com and click on chat room. I'm there all the time, as well as a huge community of other students.